It's Wednesday, June 10th. In the headlines, the Office of Utilities Regulation is reviewing a Jamaica Public Service report into Friday's island-wide power disruption. In business news, Small Business Association of Jamaica launches Growth and Resilience Conference. Regionally, Caribbean leaders call for urgent action on regional energy crisis. And in sports, 32 Jamaican student athletes in the finals at the NCAA Division I competition. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Jamaica remains Ebola-free. Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton gave an update at Wednesday's post-cabinet press briefing.
Since the release of the ministry's public service announcement on Monday, May 25th, ministry can confirm that 9 passengers from several flights into the country had a travel history associated with the affected countries. These individuals had received counseling from the airport health desk, placed under mandatory self-quarantine, and are being monitored by the respective health departments. Importantly, all 9 passengers have not manifested any symptoms associated with Ebola. Therefore, transmission is not likely.
An Ebola outbreak was reported in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda in May. Just days ago, the World Health Organization, WHO, declared the DCR Ebola situation a global health emergency. A preliminary report submitted by the Jamaica Public Service Company, JPS, into last Friday's island-wide blackout suggests the outage may have been caused by issues similar to those linked to previous national grid failures. According to the Jamaica Observer, the report was submitted to the Office of Utilities Regulation on Tuesday, although the regulator has not yet issued a public statement. Speaking to the press, Energy Minister Darrell Vaz expressed frustration over the repeated system failures, noting that similar incidents have occurred since 2006, despite previous recommendations aimed at preventing nationwide blackouts. Minister Vaz says the government intends to appoint an independent consultant to review the JPS's final report, which is due within 30 days, to ensure long-term corrective measures are implemented. The minister also pointed to findings from the OUR following the 2012 island-wide blackout, when the regulator cited human error, maintenance shortcomings, and deficiencies in the national grid infrastructure as contributing factors. He is expected to address the matter in the meeting of the lower house this Wednesday afternoon. You can watch it live on PBCJ and join the conversation on our social media pages at PBC Jamaica. Jamaica is ramping up efforts to protect the agriculture sector from drought and climate change with major investments in water security, greenhouse farming, and technology. The government has announced a $145 million water catchment pond program for drought-prone communities, alongside expanded irrigation systems, farm road upgrades, and new support measures aimed at boosting productivity, strengthening resilience, and attracting more young people to agriculture.
With the drought becoming a growing concern, the ministry says water security remains critical. To tackle the issue, RADA will launch a $145 million mini water catchment pond program in farming communities most affected by drought.
What that means, members, in our high production zones, we're going to be building out water catchment ponds. And we're targeting those parishes that are known for drought. We're going to have to start some trucking. And we're going to be purchasing 2 more water trucks for the NIC to serve underserved areas.
Additional support for farmers will include drip irrigation systems, water tanks, and mulch materials to help retain moisture in the soil. The National Irrigation Commission is also exploring desalination and grey water systems as long-term water solutions. Over the next 5 years, irrigation coverage is expected to expand to an additional 6,000 hectares of farmland. The government is also building 95 greenhouses across Clarendon, Manchester, St. Anne and St. Catherine this year at a cost of $800 million. An additional $1.5 billion will be invested through the Green Climate Fund's Adapt Jamaica project to develop stronger greenhouses capable of withstanding Category 5 hurricanes.
We are developing a national organic agriculture policy. This will establish a framework to consistently support our organic farmers. It will include certification systems, capacity building for farmers, and market development strategies.
Young people are expected to play a major role in the future of agriculture. To support this, the government has tabled a national youth in agriculture policy. It's aimed at expanding training opportunities, improving access to land and financing, and promoting climate-smart farming. Scholarships will also be introduced for the top boy and girl in agricultural science in each parish to study at the College of Agriculture, Science and Education, CASE. Technology is also transforming the sector. The ministry has completed phase 1 of the National Agricultural Monitoring and Management System called NAMS.
This is a predictive AI-driven tool that will allow us to do better forecasting of supply. What it means, members, is that the farmer, prior to planting, will be able to see how much tomato is being planted in his community, in his parish, in his country, so that he makes better decisions.
A new national agribusiness logistics map will also provide real-time pricing and market information for farmers, distributors, and consumers. Members of Parliament will also gain access to a digital platform showing farming activity and farm road conditions within their constituencies. Meanwhile, 60 farm roads are expected to be rehabilitated this year under the Farm Road Rehabilitation Program. The government will also provide $50 million in insurance coverage for 5,000 farmers, with priority being given to those on agro-parks, young farmers, and women. More farmers' markets will also be established across the island, including Negril, St. James, Portland, and Portmore, to help farmers sell more produce directly to consumers.
We are confident that if we develop our production systems to truly feed ourselves in times of rain, drought, or war, our people will be better off, our rural communities will be better off, and our country, Jamaica, will fulfill her true potential.
Black River Hospital in St. Elizabeth is set to benefit from a donation of medical equipment valued at approximately $20,000 to support neonatal and pediatric care following Hurricane Melissa. The donation was facilitated through a partnership involving the Rotary Club of St. Andrew North, Rotary International, and United Way Worldwide. The equipment includes an infant warmer, infant incubator, and 2 infusion pumps and a phototherapy lamp. President of the Rotary Club of St. Andrew North, Pierpoint Wilson, says the donation represents hope for newborns and families while helping to strengthen healthcare delivery in the parish. The government is rolling out a series of reforms aimed at speeding up land titling, reducing property disputes, and making it easier for Jamaicans to secure ownership of their land. Speaking in Parliament on a Tuesday, Land Titling and Settlement Minister Robert Montague outlined plans to digitize the system expand access to titles, and crack down on illegal land sales. He says Jamaica needs an estimated 600,000 new land titles to resolve challenges linked to untitled lands, informal subdivisions, and ownership disputes.
So between untitled lands, informal subdivisions, non-owner occupants, and land settlements, we need approximately 600,000 new titles to completely solve the land titling challenges we face as a country. As a result, land cannot be properly passed through generations. Property disputes, death, broken families, and the true benefits cannot be realized from the land. Government cannot get the right amount of taxes, and citizens cannot get the services they need, like regular garbage collection, fire services, and street lights. We do, Madam, have a problem.
Minister Montague says the government is investing in new technology and training to improve the process. Among the initiatives are a partnership with South Korea to train land professionals and plans to introduce electronic land titles beginning next year.
We are moving to solve the lack of human resources by partnering with the government and people of South Korea in opening a training school to train surveyors, draftsmen, readers, checkers, and all related professions in land matters except in lawyers. We thank the government and people of South Korea for signing off and funding this US $9 million project. The impact of this partnership will be enormous, and the bulk of the funds will be used to invest in our people and expand the pool of available professionals. It will also introduce new technologies and will increase our capacity to produce more titles.
The minister also announced plans for a revolving fund to assist small land owners who struggle to afford survey costs.
We have therefore proposed that a revolving fund will be established where landowners of 2 acres or less can apply for a surveyor's fee loan. Once the applicant applies through LAMP, an NLA-trained and certified lawyer or a recognized land management service company, they will qualify, and these funds will go directly to the surveyor and a caveat lodged against the title so that the taxpayers will recover the money. This will greatly help many families who today cannot afford to pay a surveyor.
There was a strong warning to those involved in the illegal sale of Crown lands.
No member of parliament, nor councillor, nor JP, nor big man, nor area leader can sell government land. So to those persons scamming people and says the MP send them, stop it. Because the MP never send you go do nothing like that.
The minister is urging Jamaicans to verify ownership records through the National Land Agency before purchasing property, and said the reforms are intended to strengthen property rights, expand land ownership, and secure Jamaica's future. Time now for the business report with Denise Williams.
Welcome to today's business report. I'm Denise Williams, bringing you the development shaping markets, capital access, and business decision-making across Jamaica and the region. Let's get into the stories that matter. Garnet Reid, president of the Small Business Association of Jamaica, will host the launch of the SBAJ Growth and Resilience Conference today at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel. The guest list shows the strong support that the SBAJ has built to push its mandate to promote the small business sector. In attendance will be dignitaries such as Mrs. Sansia Templer, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, representing Senator the Honorable Minister Aubin Hill. Jamaica's net international reserves (NIR) rose at the end of May, strengthening the country's external position. Figures released by the Bank of Jamaica showed the reserves increased by about 0.5%, moving to US $6.48 billion in May. This lifted the import coverage to 40 weeks, an improvement of about 0.33%. The growth was driven mainly by currency and deposits, which rose by 0.9% to US $3.32 billion. Executive Director of the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, Kamisha Turner-Blake, says Jamaica needs strong macroeconomic policies to help exporters in the wider economy navigate an increasingly challenging environment. Mrs. Turner-Blake was responding to the recent decline in merchandise exports. The JMEA Executive Director told RJR News that manufacturers require additional warehousing and logistics space to improve efficiency and competitiveness. Mrs. Turner-Blake also expressed concern that new taxes and measures contained in the national budget are adding pressure on the sector. In addition, she called for bottlenecks at the country's ports and customs operations to be addressed, and stressed the need for manufacturers to have greater access to affordable financing to rebuild and expand their businesses. For the trading period of June 9, 2026, the most actively traded securities were Kentire Holdings Jamaica Limited, with 16,295,808 units, representing 38.28% of market sales activities. Trans-Jamaica Highway Limited with 7,220,897 units, representing 16.96% of market sales activities. Dollar Financial Services Limited with 3,480,079 units, representing 8.17% of market sales activities. Investor activity remains concentrated in transportation, distribution and finance plays, signaling continued interest in dividend-producing and strategic assets. Turning to the foreign exchange market based on Bank of Jamaica data for June 9, 2026, Forex traders recorded significant activity with strong demand across major currencies. For the US dollar, trading margins reflected steady liquidity, with the US selling at $157.31 and buying at $158.93. For the Canadian dollar, moderate gains supported by $1.16 transaction spread. The Canadian dollar sold for $114.15 and was bought for $112.99. For the British pound, continued volatility offered short-term trading opportunities of $3.53 in profits for the banks. The British pound sold for $213.03 and was bought for $209.50. These movements underscore the importance of cash flow timing and currency awareness for businesses managing import costs, debt servicing, or overseas exposure. For our credit report tip of the day, your credit score isn't just about borrowing money, it's about creating experiences. When most people hear the words credit score, they think about loans, mortgages, or debt. But what if your credit score could help you visit New York, attend a conference in Toronto, spend a weekend in Miami, or take your family on a vacation you've been postponing for years? The reality is that your credit score, credit report, and credit card habits can work together to create travel opportunities that many people overlook. Your credit report tells a story. Every financial decision leaves a footprint. Paying bills on time, managing debt responsibly, and maintaining long-standing accounts all contribute to the story of your credit report, and this speaks to lenders and financial institutions. A positive credit report signals trustworthiness. That trust often translates into access to better financial products, including premium reward credit cards designed for frequent travelers. In many ways, your travel rewards journey begins long before you ever board a plane. Your credit score opens doors. A strong credit score can provide access to credit cards that offer benefits such as airline miles, hotel rewards, airport lounge access, travel insurance, and sign-up bonuses. These benefits are often reserved for consumers who have demonstrated responsible credit management over time. Simply put, the stronger your credit profile, the more opportunities become available. And that's today's business report. I'm Denise Williams, bringing clarity to capital markets and strategy. Until next time, stay informed, stay intentional, and keep building forward.
In regional news, at the Caribbean Development Bank's annual meeting in Nassau, Bahamas, regional leaders and finance experts called for an immediate shift from talk to action on the region's energy crisis. With electricity prices among the highest in the world, officials say bold collaboration and new financing models are urgently needed to deliver affordable, sustainable power across the Caribbean.
The Caribbean is feeling the squeeze of some of the highest electricity rates on the planet, costs that are threatening businesses, families, and the region's competitiveness. This had the Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, bringing together government officials, utility leaders, and financial experts in Nassau, Bahamas last week to demand urgent solutions. CDB's acting coordinator for sustainable energy, Charmaine Gill Evans, says the time for talk is over and the era of implementation begins here.
Energy is not an abstract policy issue for the Caribbean. It is the cost that a small business owner cannot absorb. It is the hospital generator that cannot fail. It is the fiscal pressure that squeezes a government's room to invest in its people. And it is the climate vulnerability that reminds us perennially, season after season, that the stakes of inaction are existential.
Jill Evans underscored just how high the stakes are.
We remain amongst the most dependent on imported fossil fuels of any region in the world, paying some of the highest electricity prices on the planet. That paradox is not just economic inefficiency, it's a development emergency. And we do know what is needed.
Experts say outdated infrastructure, regulatory hurdles, and a lack of financing are all keeping alternative energy solutions out of reach for many. But according to Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, or ECCB's Governor Timothy Antwine, the region's biggest challenge is not really a lack of money, but rather a shortage of large investment-ready projects.
With our Caribbean energy transition is not a shortage of capital. It is a shortage of investment-ready platforms to convert available capital to bankable projects at scale.
Antwine is calling for countries to pool smaller projects into larger regional portfolios, thereby making them more attractive to private investors and unlocking much-needed economies of scale. He highlighted the new Regional Renewable Energy Infrastructure Investment Facility as a model for success, aggregating projects and using blended finance and guarantees to reduce risk and lower costs.
We have to bring private capital to the table. And in a region where we have abundance of all these renewables, excess liquidity in the financial system, for God's sake, we have now to design an investment architecture that allows us to leverage not just the MDBs like CDB and World Bank and GCF and others, but also our commercial banks.
The call for urgent collaborative action was echoed by other panelists, including Bahamas Power and Light CEO Tony Pratt, who stressed the need for policy reform and public-private partnerships, while Kristen Lang of the Green Climate Fund urged multilateral banks to act together as system integrators, supporting Caribbean countries to build large-scale bankable clean energy projects. Tony Julian, GBN News.
Guyana is strengthening its role as a regional leader in agricultural innovation with the launch of the Caribbean Sustainable Agriculture Science, Technology and Innovation Hub. The initiative, a partnership between Guyana and Brazil and the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, aims to boost research, technology transfer, and climate-smart farming to improve food security and agricultural productivity across the Caribbean. The details in this news report.
The Caribbean Sustainable Agriculture, Science, Technology and Innovation Hub has officially been launched in Guyana, establishing the country as a regional hub for agriculture research, innovation and technology development. The hub is expected to facilitate joint research, strengthen scientific capacity, and accelerate the adoption of technologies tailored to tropical agricultural systems. Speaking at the launch, Minister of Agriculture Zulfikar Mustafa underscored the importance of the initiative in advancing food security and agricultural modernization across the region.
This is a historic step in promoting innovation, applied research, and agricultural modernization in the region. Innovation is no longer optional. As Dr. Ibrahim just said, it is essential for our agri-food system and food security.
The initiative is being developed through a collaboration between Guyana, Brazil's Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, and the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation and Agriculture, and it will focus on priority areas including tropical crop and livestock systems, climate-smart agriculture, and sustainable land use management. Minister Mustafa noted that the hub is a major milestone for agricultural development and innovation in the Caribbean.
Guyana's role as the lead country for the CARICOM Ministerial Task Force on Food Production and Food Security places us at the center of the region's agricultural transformation. Hosting this hub is a natural extension of our leadership.
Operations are expected to begin during the second half of the year, with the initiative expected to strengthen regional collaboration and position the Caribbean as a leader in sustainable tropical agricultural innovation. David Clark for NCN News.
We lead off our sports segment with athletics. 32 Jamaican student athletes have qualified for individual finals at the NCAA Division I Outdoor Track and Field Championships that are set to start on Wednesday at Hayward Field in Oregon, USA. Led by Ralford Mullings of the University of Oklahoma, who won the men's discus throw last year, and Dejanay Oakley of the University of Georgia, who was second in the women's 400 meters, the Jamaicans will be competing for their respective schools as the U.S. college track and field season comes to a close. In football, it was another disappointing outing for head coach Derek King and the Trinidad and Tobago national football team. Despite a spirited effort in Tuesday's international friendly at the Killiningard Stadium, Trinidad and Tobago were unable to break through the defense of opponents Russia's national football team, as the hosts controlled the match to secure a comfortable victory. Adrian Lazar brings us the highlights.
The Trinidad and Tobago senior men's football team looked to capture their first victory since a 3-0 win over Bermuda in 2025, when they traveled to Kaliningrad to face Russia, ranked 36th in the FIFA men's rankings. TNT got off to a bad start as early as the 7th minute, thanks to a well-executed low drive by right-back Mingian Biviev that got past TNT goalkeeper Denzel Smith. That goal gave the home team confidence as they began to string some positive passes together that ultimately led to the ball falling to Alexandri Alianov, whose volley flew past Smith. Russia up 2-0. Things would only get worse for the visitors after Kahim Thomas was well beaten down the left. Russia's number 20, following a give-and-go, found Alexei Batrakov, who fired Russia 3-0 up. That's how the match would end. 8 goals conceded in 2 matches for TNT, who remain without a win in their last 8 matches. Adrian Nazar, TTT Sport.
And that's it for the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Thanks for watching.